What is a thing anyway? A thing is an expression of God. And so, okay, so you want to have a conversation about everything, you can do that, but I'm going to give a talk now. Okay. All right. So the conversation is about not even the possibility of losing a thing. It's not simply the possibility of never losing a thing, but it's the absolute certainty that it is all here now. It's the absolute certainty that as we live our life each day and yes, allow the sunrise to come through and the sunlight to shine through, it is simply another way that light is having its full sway in and as our lives. It is simply the way that love is expressing that it is growing us through each and every moment. It is simply the way that we move into this monthly theme of living in a holy, holy way. And so when we talk about wholeness, we're talking about the completeness of God. We're talking about the completeness of each one of God's creations. Knowing that God implanted all of His qualities into everything that it had simply by the process of thinking each of you into being. When God thought about this idea that is camera, it was thinking wholeness and perfection and completeness, because God is ever contemplating itself in a very loving way. It is forever revealing to itself the manifestation of this loving energy. And so each of us is endowed with the fullness of God's qualities without even any kind of iota of a diminishment of the presence of God. It doesn't lose any of itself by creating each one of us. It becomes more of itself through its expression of itself in and through our lives. And so we have an opportunity here to understand that each thing has its beingness. And that even though there may be a temporary form here, there is an origin within us that is from the formless one life. It is that same formless one life that was speaking to Ola, having a conversation. And so it is this same conversation that we each have, whether we are licensed practitioners like Erica or whether we are practitioners practicing these spiritual principles. For everything that we learn through our classes and through the messages and through our spiritual studies and our meditation, through our visioning and through our affirmative prayer, our treatments, what we come to know as we surrender to our small self and engage in the fullness of who we are is when we come into that state of bliss. That's when we come into an understanding of the allness of life. Eckhart Tolle says most people don't inhabit a living reality, but a conceptualized one. We continue to find ways of moving our attention into the future or moving our attention into the past, and neither one of these things are going to allow us to feel the fullness of love. But I'm inviting you to find every opportunity to find the fullness of love, Maggie, because just even pure belief in God isn't enough. It's a poor substitute for the living reality of God manifesting in every moment of your life. And so just to think of God as something that is outside of us is to diminish the power of who we are. To think of God as something that we need to beg, which we don't do in New Thought. We simply know that it is already ours. But if you are searching the world for treasure, you won't find it outside of yourself. Our meditative thought of the week says the real treasure is yourself. Look to your neighbor and say, the real treasure is yourself.
The real treasure is yourself.
How's that feel? Okay, because basically you were talking to yourself. This person has another form, but it's just another expression of you that is out pictured just for your convenience so that you may remember your magnificence. And if your encounter with that person does not reveal that right away, just keep on living, it will. Rumi says, are you searching for yourself? Then come out of your own prison. So if you are searching for yourself, then you must have some kind of belief that you are limited in some kind of way. You must have some kind of perception that you are not free, and that is not the truth of your being because you were made out of the substance of freedom. But if you are experiencing something other than that freedom, it is simply because something is happening in your mind. I met a new friend, and when she found out that I was a minister, she said, oh, I hope you're not going to try to save my soul. And I said, no, my next book was going to be called Save Yourself. Because your soul is perfect. It's your mind that needs some attention. And the attention that your mind needs is for it to turn within to the very substance, the very core of who you are. I know that some of our churches do meditation in different ways. They maybe slip it in or do a little piece of it, and that's fine for people that are trying to cater to the whims of others. But when you allow yourself to be fully present in a meditative practice, it is like you're being refueled. It's like you're being re-energized. It's like you're being reinvigorated. It's like you're being absolutely refreshed with the fullness of your life energy. And all of the wonderful health benefits that come from simply breathing and being aware of the breath. You know, when I was in yoga class and we were talking about just breathing through your back, it's like massaging your kidneys, and then massaging your kidneys is absolutely activating the wholeness and the flow of good in your life. So breathing is so very important for us to connect with our source. God is wholeness, perfection, and completeness. And that is the truth of each one of us. If all that we seek is within, then we will absolutely never want. You know that psalm that says, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. That means that the law of the universe is forever responding to that loving energy that is safety itself. So the Lord means law. And so that's the action of God. And so the action of God is always watching over you. And so even if you try to convince it that you want, it doesn't really believe that you are wanting. It simply agrees with you until you come around to your awareness that the fullness of God is your divine birthright. You may have convinced yourself that I am one of the 99.9 and blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to even finish that statement, because what I know is that the abundance of life is so rich. When I look at the abundance of rain that came down over the last few days, I go, wow, there's always moisture for the nature. There's always moisture for us. There's something being replenished in our reservoir of water. There's something that's being replenished in the multiplying of the leaves of grass, and the multiplying of the leaves on the trees, and the multiplying of the blossoms on the flowers, and the multiplying of these wonderful thoughts that we have come through our cleansing processes, allowing the presence of God to continue to shower down blessings upon us and shower through blessings upon us and through us. It is a great, grand, and glorious universe. So as we were being with the Deepak Chopra meditations. There were a number of different teachers who were coming through and making themselves known in the process, and one was David Simon, and he was inviting us to relinquish the I and move into an expanded sense of we. And so moving into an expanded sense of we is what we talk about in our vision statement. It's seeing God in each other. And so when you see God in each other, there's no way that that person can be God and you not be God. There's no way that you can be God and that person not be God. I'm not interested in their behavior. We all know that there's an evolutionary process that occurs. If you didn't know it, you might have felt it on the other day in Washington, D.C., when we were celebrating the commemoration of the March on Washington. You might have felt the power of the evolution that has come through. You might have felt the power of the geniuses that have continued to say yes to the I am within them, whether it was Dr. King or whether it was President Obama or President Clinton or President Carter. You might have seen it in any one of the people who had been there in 1963, 50 years ago. I'm knowing that if you are able to see the we, that your sense of identity expands. And when you feel centered and open and comfortable, your heart begins to open. And when your heart begins to open, you become aware of this loving energy that is so available to you, so available to us. And that you have the power within you to be able to focus this loving energy toward those people who are not feeling their divinity. It's not unlike what Erica was sharing this morning. It's not unlike what Imani was sharing this morning as that loving shepherd kind of consciousness that is watching over, that is ever acting upon itself, that is forever bringing something new and alive into our experience. And so what I know is that as we are listening to Khalil Gibran, he says, love has no desire but to fulfill itself, to melt and be like a running brook that sings its melody to the night, to wake at dawn with a winged heart, and to give thanks for another day of loving. Just be in that for a moment. If you can allow yourself to awaken to being gently awakened by love that is waiting to express its love to you and through you. And you are able to wake up as the embodiment of love. You are able to wake up as the carrier of love. You are able to awaken to your divine essence and your inner purpose. And as you step into your day or even roll over and turn off the alarm clock, you're doing it from a place of, I get an opportunity to love today. Once this alarm goes off, then I move into the fullest expression of love that I possibly can. And so we're talking about a wholeness mindset here. Because when you're a whole, you don't need anybody to be in relationship with you in order for you to know that you are complete. But we're so grateful that we all are. When you're feeling your wholeness and you don't need to think about the dis-ease that is going on in your body temple because you have a way of knowing, like Ola knew, that there is a presence and a power that can make any seeming crooked places straight. You can know that there is the harmony of life itself that is moving through and absolutely able to balance out those energies if you would believe and trust in the word that you are speaking when you say, and so it is. Because when you say those words, and so it is, you are closing the treatment, you are releasing the word into the universe, and you are letting God have his full sway. But I'm not going to talk about what happens if you keep holding on to it, thinking that if you don't let go of it, that God will not be doing anything with it. that comes out of something other than wisdom, that comes out of something other than wholeness, that comes out of something other than completeness. That is certainly not perfection. But it is on the road to perfection, because whenever you are on your journey, you are either moving away from the Father and toward the Father, and anytime you're moving away from the Father, you are already moving back to the Father. There is no way that you are not in alignment with your good. There is no way that you are not in alignment with God. And so today's topic is a truth, pure being, and bliss. Now we all have our perceptions about what we think truth is. I remember when I was in college and I had an RA, and I believe she was Mormon. And we used to just clown, you know how you are when you're freshman in college. Stupid. You know? If you were stupid like me, you were like getting high. And let's mess with the RA. Let's see what truth is. So I went into her room, and she had this really interesting music playing and the picture of their leader, and she was proceeding to tell me about what truth was, and she was very committed to sharing that in such a way that it was clear that her convictions were solid. And it's a funny thing about having solid convictions. When you do so, you start to convince other people that it's true. And I was like, wow. Okay. And it's not that any particular religion does not have its truth. The thing is, what Ernest Holmes found out was that what is common to all of these truths are what we need to focus on. Whether it's Buddhism, whether it's Hinduism, whether it's Christianity, whether it's Taoism, whatever it might be, these particular things are pointing us toward the essence of who we are. There is a universe that is known to us, and sometimes it is merely known to us at the level of the subjective, because that's as far as we're willing to be awakened. And so we trust what we feel. So subjective means at the level of the subject, and so being that we are the subject of our own sentence, and that there are ways that we are verbalizing our own truths, our bees, our isms, in terms of being, in terms of your very state of isness. So each thing has a beingness, and as long as you are unaware of being, you will seek meaning only in the dimension of doing. You know what I'm talking about. You get involved in your career, you get involved in your relationship, you get involved in your projects, and you start to forget your beingness because you are so caught up in the doingness that you have forgotten who is really doing the doing. And so we have this great opportunity to see, as Eckhart Tolle was sharing with us, that to be true to life, you have to be true to your inner purpose. And in being true to your inner purpose, you are being true to that loving energy that wants to reveal itself through you. Now, whatever your particular career may be, whether it is bricklaying or singing, whether it is casting or teaching, whether it is doing IT work or being a caregiver, whatever it is that you do, you are doing it as the presence of God. Because the wholeness means that everything that we individually contributes completes the whole. The person that is able to lay the bricks is providing a dwelling for the family, and the family is providing love for each other, and they are going out into the world and they are being expressions of God, and so everything is connected. And so that there is nothing that you can possibly see as an occupation that would not be noble, unless you are not doing it with the fullness of your being, because you have a perception that this is not enough, or this is not who you are. And so if you are a maid, or if you are a butler in the White House, there is something about your ability to be able to do that to the best of your ability that does contribute to the mindset. I won't give it away for you, but those of you who have seen it know what I'm saying, that your diligence and your excellence have an impact on the whole country, indeed the whole world. And so your way of showing up in not wholeness, in some partial thinking that you're not enough because after all, I'm only doing this for a living, and after all, I didn't get that particular project I wanted, and after all, I didn't get that relationship I wanted, and all of those thoughts don't give you a capacity to think about anything that is great about you. That is why we say in the vision statement that we step into our greatness with the grace of God and with these teachings, because we take this truth and we allow it to be embodied in ourselves so that our beingness becomes a vibrant contributor to this thing called life. Just as we say to our new visitors that their presence is so necessary. It's not their absence that is necessary. It is their presence that is necessary. It is them being present with the presence of God. It is them being present with the divine that is within. And so as long as you are unaware of your beingness, then the meaning won't be complete. But so what I'm inviting you into is an understanding of what it feels like to feel whole. Not what your bank account says, not what your credit limit says, not what your credit report says, not your FICA or none of that is anything to do with your wholeness. Because zero had to have something added to it in order to be one. And you are that one. And in the same instance, you are no thing. And when I say you are no thing, that doesn't mean you are nothing. That simply means that there is something about you that cannot be categorized. There is something about you that cannot be labeled. There is something about you that cannot be limited. And that is your divine substance. That is the pure beingness of you. And so if you were looking at the White House activities, you might have found the kind of joy that I found. And for those of you who have seen me on Facebook, you might have come to know that on that Wednesday, I was just happy to see every black person that I could see. I said, you know, y'all know I love everybody every day, but I just had something in my heart flutter when I saw a black person that day. I was like, look at you. Look what you've done. Look what you've been through. Look how you handled it. You know, you don't have to use the N-word when you talk about people whose behavior is other than that. Thank God that you know the difference between how to act right and how not to act like you know who you are as a divine expression of God. The very fact that you know better shows you that you have something to be grateful for. And the very fact that it is your light that the world is depending on for you to know your wholeness, for you to know your completeness, for you to know your perfection is the very thing that the world is needing right now. It is the very thing that brings you into an alignment with the allness of life. That means my brothers and sisters in Syria are my concern. That means that my brothers and sisters all over the place are my concern. The children that are going to school, that the fierce women are walking to school this Tuesday, the fierce women of faith who have taken a stand and said that we are standing for love and that we are standing in peace and that we are absolutely our brother's keeper. We are absolutely here as the presence of God, and as such, what we want to see is what we are participating in. We're not simply complaining about what we see on the news. We're not simply complaining about what the child didn't do. We're not simply complaining about how those people are acting across the continent. We're not simply complaining about what hasn't happened right in our lives, but we are participating in the rightness of our lives. And the way that we do that is to know our wholeness, to know that we are able, to know that the I am within us is doing the work. And it is then when we can come into a state of bliss. Ernest Holmes tells us in this thing called You. You, like all others, are seeking the joy of living. You wish to be needed, to be loved, to be included in the great drama of life. This urge is in every individual. It is in everything. The rose exists to express beauty. Root and branch conspire with nature to give birth to blossom. An artist will starve in his garret that he may chisel an angelic form from a slab of marble, compelling the unyielding substance to accept his breath of creation. We each have a breath of creation. We each are here to fulfill that divine purpose. And when we do so, we are able to feel that moment of bliss. Think about that time when you completed your garden, or when you finished that piece of music, or when you finished that particular project. Think of that time when you felt good about what you had accomplished. Think of that moment when you were able to reverse a relationship that was going in the wrong direction. Think about the fullness that you felt about yourself and the great gratitude that came over you when you were able to feel good about yourself. Know that this feeling is available to you in each and every moment. It is accessible. It is right here, right now. And so what I know is that everything in nature is endowed with this creative urge. And so I invite you to turn within now. I invite you to turn to that loving presence, to that presence where you're still feeling the resonance of that joy that you felt in that moment. Knowing that you got it because of the thing that is within you. It is the heaven that is within. It is the heaven that is at hand. It's not waiting on the by and by. It's right here, right now. It's saying, you are my beloved in whom I am well pleased. It is saying, you are precious to me. You are brilliant. You are beautiful. You are magnificent. You are my light. You are life expressing me perfectly. You are life expressing completely. There is nothing missing. Everything is here for you, my beloved, for you. Allow yourself to feel that. Cherish it. And as you come back into this room, understand this is your truth. This is pure being. This is bliss. And it is ever present. I invite you to invoke it through your meditation, through your spiritual practices, through your daily living, through your conversations with yourself. If you can't believe the words I can, then believe the words that the God within me is able. Namaste. Namaste.